What's up, everyone, and welcome back to another Indy Investor Pod. I got Randy here with me, and we are just going to dig into a little bit of resources today. So, really, what kind of spurring this on is we are getting ready to put out. I think it's like a 12-episode series that we have right now on just different neighborhoods. We did this earlier on when we first came out. We first started the Indy Investor Pod. I forget even what episodes it was, but I got to sit down with Sterling and Dave and Steve Lehman and talk really about just different neighborhoods and kind of different sections, the different areas. We stayed pretty general with some stuff, dug into some stuff a little bit deeper. Other stuff we had to stay pretty vague and things, but really just kind of an overview of the different neighborhoods. We're looking to do a little bit deeper into that now with some experts, people that are investing in these different areas as well. We're breaking it right now into a 12-episode kind of series. We haven't recorded all of them yet, so I don't know exactly how many numbers it's going to be, but that's coming out next. So really what Randy and I thought would be a really good thing to do is dig into what resources are people using that can be beneficial for you to understand what's going on in different areas, different neighborhoods, different zip codes, that type of thing, which hopefully, as you listen to the neighborhood episodes that are coming out, it's going to make a little bit more sense when you also tie it to some of these resources that you can see visually on your screen of like, oh, I understand this heat map, or I understand what they're saying about this area, that type of thing. So Randy, as we dig into this, talking about these resources and stuff like that, do you have any what's your kind of heads up for everybody as we kind of start talking about neighborhoods and using resources and really being aware of what's going on in these different areas?
Yeah, just that is that these are just resources. This is a guide to kind of, show you what's going on out there to whoever's opinion, right? Because all of these, resources that we're going to give you, we're all made by different people. For the most part, they're going to be pretty similar, but there's going to be some differences. So don't live and die by it, but use it as a resource to guide you in the right direction of what you want to do. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be your properties you're buying. You have to make sure you like the area personally, that it feels safe to you and all that good stuff. So definitely use them and use them to your advantage. But at the end of the day, it's an opinion and a resource.
Yeah. And what is the best resource you can have is experience.
Yeah.
That's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to experience. We're going to talk about different things. Like we said, this is our opinion. This is their opinion as well. The people that created these, the people that are tying into this stuff and things. There's some numbers behind it. There's some data behind it. There's some analytics behind it, which is all awesome, and put it all together. It's really, really cool. But just keep in mind too, if we're talking about a red area, you can have success in a red area. If you have talking about a green area, you can fall flat on your face in a green area. It happens all the time. But it's learning from experience, knowing that, like I said, that experience really is one of your best resources and things. So, all right, as we dig into this, we kind of wrote down some of the resources that we use, also reached out to some of our investor friends, see kind of what they're using too. They all kind of relate with each other. Everybody kind of uses a lot of the same stuff. There actually is one resource in here that I haven't used yet that we'll kind of talk about a little bit later and stuff. But I think one of the resources that a lot of people went to, kind of the first thing, this gentleman came out with this a couple years ago, really cool. But Sterling White basically came out with something he called the Investor's Guide to Grading Indianapolis Neighborhoods. Really cool resource. I remember a couple years ago, I actually did a radio show through Real Talk Radio on his map when it first came out, along with, I think, I'm sure Sterling and Dave and I think Vicky and whoever was on that episode with me, we got to kind of talk about this. That was before I actually even knew Sterling. Now we have a friendship now and stuff, which is pretty cool, knowing where he came from. And so he came out with that original one a couple of years ago, just this last year, last fall, winter, right around there. He actually updated it, upgraded it, has kind of a new version. It's on the same thing though. It's basically just an upgraded version of that map. The same location it was in the first spot, but just with updated information, updated neighborhoods. And actually we were able to kind of help him out with that, along with Sterling Davis, Steve Lehman, and just gave him some of our insights on some of the stuff that he was having trouble with and things like that. But really what it is, it's a really good resource to kind of look through and understand kind of a grading scale. He explains the grading scale on there of if it's an A neighborhood, what does that mean? When it comes to the schools and it comes to just the rent rates and everything that ties into that. And then if it is a D neighborhood, why is it a D neighborhood? Why, what he defines that as. And I think that's a good thing too, is that he actually has those definitions, and there's a lot of analytics behind that and insights behind that too. But it's broken down into basically where it goes red to green.
Hmm.
A dark green being your A neighborhoods, and then your red being one of your lower neighborhoods and stuff like that. Not lower neighborhoods like, hey, you can invest here or don't invest here. It's just when it comes down to how the schools are rated, what the rent rates are, that type of thing and stuff. So I mean, it's a very valuable resource. I think is it the Bible? No, but it's a great way to see what other people think of what's going on in Indianapolis and things. And, like I said, there's some of the green areas that you can have trouble in, some of the red areas that I know people are having success in, but it's what works for you and your strategy and things like that. But Randy, I think that's one of the first, a lot of times when I talk to people about investing in Indy and learning about the neighborhoods and the maps and things like that, Sterling White's, thing is one of the first things that people bring up and stuff.
Yeah, it's the first thing that I brought up, like you said, when it came out a couple of years ago. I just stumbled upon it. I didn't even know it was a thing. I forget what I was doing, but it popped up and I'm like, oh, this is cool. The cool thing about that map too is, at least for my phone, I open it up on Google and I could like add it to my Google Maps. So whenever if I had navigation going, if I was doing anything, like I had his color coded map on my screen. So if I knew if I was driving through a red area, I'm like, oh shoot, like I should look where I'm going. But the thing I like about the map is that it's not color coded by neighborhood. Like when we try to give them some advice on like how the market's kind of changed around, there's some areas where within the same neighborhood, you'll have an orange and a yellow. So we try to go in and say, okay, well, this is overall, this neighborhood's like split down the middle, because if you go to this side of the street, it's a little worse than the other side. So we really try to go in and point out those areas like, hey, you could be somewhere on the west side, but if you go north of 16th, it's different if you go south of 16th Street. So we really try to point that out. And I think that's what I like best about that map.
Yeah, definitely. So great resource. And then another resource that's a lot like that, and kind of use almost the same way of the red to green and grading the neighborhoods and be able to see it on color zones. Evan and Clay Manship, they came out with a map too, just the IndyInvestorMap.com. You can go there to check it out. Sorry, for Sterling's, you actually go, it's just, it's on Bigger Pockets. You can look at it on there. It's just called The Investor's Guide to Grading Indianapolis Neighborhoods. Let's look that up, or just put like Google
Sterling
White, like map, and
you
like,
could Google Bigger Pockets Indianapolis map and it'd pop up.
Yeah. So, but Evan and Clay, they have a map as well. I think it's a great resource as well. I'm a little jealous that they actually got the IndyInvestorMap.com. They got that website. Awesome. So that's pretty cool. Good job for them. But they, as you guys know them too, they do an amazing job. They have a lot of knowledge about what is going on in Indianapolis and what's working for investors, what's not working for investors. And with their map, just like Sterling's, it's kind of the same thing of basically like, hey, this is graded an A, this is graded a red, or whatever it may be, and everything in between there. But a lot of theirs is based off of people can actually grade it kind of themselves on like, hey, how this is what's happening to me, or this is what happened to me. So it's kind of based off of a little bit of experience as well of what's going on in those neighborhoods from active investors that are investing there. I know one of the things that like stood out to me when I was looking at their map and stuff like that, of like what a boundary line 38th Street is like. We all know that, and we've talked about it, and like we want it to come down a little bit below that and stuff, but it is a boundary line and stuff, and that's one of the first things that popped up as I was looking at that. But it's a great resource, and just just to be able to look into what's going on in these different areas, and it's not broken down like, hey, all of Irvington is doing this, but no, it's like kind of what's going on around there and how it's broken down and things like that too. So Randy, what are your thoughts on that, and just how investors can really use that as a resource as well to help them out?
Yeah, I think they did a great job on putting that map together. The thing I think I like about it most is, like you said, it's people can kind of go in and make their comments about the area. If they had a success of doing a project there, they can make those comments. And then also, I believe if you click on a certain map or a certain area on the map, it'll pull up like just a brief overview of that neighborhood. Like, hey, this is kind of like the information about Mapleton Fall Creek or wherever it is, but it'll give like a brief snapshot on what that neighborhood's characteristics are like.
Yeah. So awesome stuff. No, they did a great job with it. So if you're looking for maps and just kind of the color coding and stuff like that, definitely check out Sterling, check out Evan and Clay's, both resources. Amazing job. Awesome stuff there. And I think a lot of people are referring to those. So definitely check those out. And then two of the resources that I know I use a lot, especially starting off, as I was starting to figure out like, hey, how do I price stuff? How do I look at things? other than the MLS and comps, which actually is funny on my list. I never put the MLS down here, which is, it's kind of funny, but huge resource there. But we're looking at other resources type of thing. But, and these two are, it's citydata.com, which is actually city-data.com. And then this is very similar to this. I actually like this one a little bit better than citydata.com, but the United States zip codes.org. If you go into either one of those, this is where it's going to give you data based on really a lot of the zip codes. So if you're looking at, hey, what's going on in, 46202, look it up by zip code. They're going to give you just, you can scroll and scroll and scroll. There's different just breakdowns, graphs, data, analytics, numbers, all different kinds of stuff, things that I never thought that I would even consider or think about when I was looking at like how to evaluate a property, but they're huge. Things that, like I said, I didn't think about, but now that I do, I'm like, oh wow, this is a really good resource. So you can kind of see demographic wise of how it breaks down in the different zip codes and things like that. So I think those are two resources that I think have been huge. I know a lot of people use them. And if you haven't checked out either one of those, I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah, those two sites are definitely a data nerd's dream, because like you said, it's so many charts and numbers you could look at. For myself, it's a little overwhelming because I don't like to do a deep dive, and I'm not a big analytical guy. But for someone that is, who wants to know, hey, like what's the median income here, and employment rates and unemployment rate and all that good stuff, it's all there, and you could dive even deeper than that. But whoever likes to base their decision on raw data, you'll find it all there.
Yeah. So I was on United States zipcodes.org the other day, and like I was just looking in 46218, which is everybody's favorite zip code.
the hot topic,
like,
right?
Kind of like, I was in a conversation with somebody, and I was like, I want to dig into this a little bit more. Like I feel like I was talking about it, pretty intelligently and stuff. And I just like really just dug into the data, and I realized like all of a sudden, like really like an hour and a half had gone by. I'm like, wow, I got a lot of information out of that. Then I was like, oh wow, that was only one zip code. There are a lot of zip codes that like, I need to like dive in and like look at some stuff. So you can definitely get chased down the rabbit hole and those types of things. So
yeah.
Some of the other resources that a lot of people like, I know a lot of investors when looking at, they look at what some of the turnkey companies are doing. Not necessarily if maybe they can buy from them, they can do whatever they want, but a lot of them are providing really good information on trends. I think market trends with what's going on in different neighborhoods, different areas here within Indianapolis, I think is really important. Some of the top ones that people might look at is like Roofstock, Fortune Builders, Norada, those types of things. If you look into those companies and look at what's going on in Indianapolis and what turnkey companies are doing, it will give you a lot of insights on like, hey, like I said, the market trends on what's going on and what you can expect. And then they also do some different breakdowns on like, you can go on there. And I think just by looking at the different prices that they have on properties, for a lot of them have the exact same type of property, but different neighborhoods, the price difference, and you can really dig into it that way. And that's how I've kind of used it, of just like looking on these sites of like, hey, how are they pricing this? What are they doing with this? Well, why is this 2-bed, 1-bath it looks exactly like it. It's still it's the gray paint and white trim. They've done it on all of them. But why is this one, $30,000 more? Oh, okay. Because it's across the street. Those types of things you can kind of look at. And I think is really helpful.
Yeah, I think anyone looking to buy rental properties in Indy, if they don't want to go the turnkey route, like going to those resources are still good, because like you said, it's showing you kind of where they're having success selling turnkey properties. And basically anyone who's buying properties for themselves, they're getting it to that turnkey standard, but they're keeping it for themselves. But it's showing like, hey, this is the area where people are renting, and this is the rates they're getting, and this is what your property has to look like to generate that rent. So if you're not a turnkey buyer, those resources are still good to look at to see where you need to be to get in the action.
Yeah. On that note too, I always take a look at that stuff so I know what's like not even just like the market trends, but I look at what are the trends that people are designing the properties of. Like, hey, what's renting now? Like what paint scheme are in?
What finishes need to be in the property?
Brown tried to make a comeback, but it's still back to the gray and white. One of the other things that I know, one of my favorite just kind of, housing economists and people to really like pay attention to and look at is John Burns. Like John Burns is, he's just amazingly like just smart and intelligent. And I've had the privilege of listening to him through one of our masterminds that we're a part of. And he always presents on like to the housing market and what's expected next. But he's one of the people that turned me on to this, is paying attention to U-Haul. If you look at how U-Haul is basically what the rent rates are on renting a trailer or renting a truck, to be able to basically be able to look at U-Haul, you can see like the migration trends of like where people are moving to and stuff like that. So his example that he showed to me one time was basically like, if you look at Los Angeles to Phoenix, the difference between that, everybody, you know, we know that people are moving out of California into Arizona and Phoenix, and that's the way it is. If you were to rent a U-Haul, you know, in Los Angeles and take it to Phoenix to drop it off, unload it, it was like basically the price to do that was like 5 times more than the opposite is if you took something from Phoenix to LA. That was like super cheap because people were not moving from Phoenix to LA. Everybody was moving from LA to Phoenix. So actually right before this podcast, I got on there to look at the migration trend of what's going on here in Indianapolis. I just looked at the closest, biggest city, which is Chicago. You know, what's going on? Are people moving from Indianapolis to Chicago, or are people moving from Chicago to Indianapolis? If you were to rent a U-Haul, just the smallest size U-Haul, the truck trailer, you know, the truck with that you can rent with a trailer on the back of it. If you rent it from Chicago to come to Indianapolis, it's $213. All right. If you were to rent it from Indianapolis to go to Chicago, it's $104. So what does that tell you? People are moving out of Chicago into places like Indianapolis. We know this. We talk about this all the time. There are not just people moving here. There are businesses moving here because it's a lot easier to operate a business out of New York than it is, you know, out of Indianapolis than it is in New York, or Chicago, Illinois, you know, Illinois, Chicago area, or California, things like that. Businesses are moving to Indianapolis. People are moving to Indianapolis. The U-Haul thing just even shows it from Chicago to Indianapolis, which I thought was pretty cool. I was afraid I was going to talk about it and then like actually get on there and be like, oh, it didn't hold true. It definitely did. It was like kind of more than double.
Yeah, that's a ninja little data, like little resource there. I'd never even heard that was a thing. You could look those stats up through U-Haul, but definitely eye opening, and it's really cool because you could look it up for any area. So even if you don't just invest in Indianapolis, you can see what the trends are for other markets you invest in, see if there's more people moving there.
Yeah, 100%. And then also just a shout out, John Burns, definitely check out his stuff, his books, what he's got going on and stuff like that. Give you a lot of different insights on just real estate, the economy in general and what's going on with it. So one of the other things that a lot of people like to look at is like the flood zone map. So if you go to FEMA, the flood zone map, I think is really important to look at. I've just kind of always been in an area, I think, where there's always rain. There's always like kind of a chance of flooding in some way and stuff like that. Yeah. But when I looked at it from an investment standpoint, where I'm like, oh, wow, I need to know if this is going to flood, if it's going to flood the basement, or is it going to flood just the garage, or what's going on with that. That types of stuff is important to know where your houses are. Definitely paying attention to that. Even just know, I mean, you can get on there and you know just where the areas are in Indianapolis. There's like, 3 or 4, ones that you have to like really pay attention to and stay away from those areas and you're going to be okay. Yeah. So that's a good resource to kind of check out or just see kind of where, if you're evaluating a property and you want to see where it is, where does it lie within that and stuff. So
yeah, I think a lot of people are actually using that more often now, because I used to get that question all the time, like, hey, Randy, is this in a flood zone, or what are the chances of this flooding? I rarely get that question now. So I think this kind of like became a thing to add to your kind of due diligence. Last year, I kind of saw more people looking at this website. So I think now it's kind of a normal thing, which is good because I don't like to be liable for that, answering that question.
So, and I would always just go by, kind of what the MLS said, what was the grade they put on the flood zone thing and that type of stuff. So really good resource there. One of the ones that I want to point out, and actually I wasn't really sure, or I didn't really know about this one until somebody pointed it out to me. It's really good, is the NeighborhoodScout.com. This is one that is a subscription, but really cool, where you can basically take stuff and you can build layers and heat maps and stuff like that. Basically where you can pick like 4 to 5 different criteria, lay it over top of each other, and within those overlays, see kind of what works for you. What are the hot spots? If you can take, hey, crime rates, unemployment rates and rental rate and stuff, and put them on a map and see what pops up for you, what fits into your criteria, what works for you. I thought this one was pretty cool. Yeah. I know our buddy Asil uses this one, and one of our favorite California investors and stuff. So this really worked for him, but I thought it was a really good resource to point out here too.
Yeah, it's something brand new. You told me right before the show. I checked it out, and it's definitely a site that you could definitely spend some time on, and like you said, put your own layers on there. And then one that we just looked at was they show like the highest appreciation areas of the cities. So it's interesting to see where those were. So definitely check that out and mess around with it. There's some free features you could do. You don't have to sign up, but if you want the full thing, you'll probably have to sign up and have some fun. But you could definitely get some free resources there.
Yeah. So, a couple other ones too. They are, everybody, they're available for everybody that everybody should be using. Is just like the Google Earth and Street View and stuff like that.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things to do is on the Google Maps, take my little guy, click on him and drop him in the neighborhood and walk around with him. I think that's really important to see kind of what's going on. Granted, it is, it's not like Google took the pictures that day, but it's going to give you insights on what's going on. There's a lot of times that, you walk around the corner and you realize like, or you see a vacant spot where it looks like on the map, but if you walk past it, like, oh, that's like a used car lot, or, that's a junkyard, or that's just an open field. What's going on there, and looking into it and things. So I think it's a really good way to see what's going on in the neighborhoods, what's going on around there. And you can literally virtually walk the neighborhood and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I use Google Earth daily, and for that reason, I walk up and down streets, and it's a good way to see like, because it's generally like in the rougher areas, like you've got cars lined up all down the sidewalk on both sides on a two-way street where like two cars can't go through at the same time, which that affects value, right? Like people don't necessarily choose to live there over some place where it's more of a slower street or things like that. So definitely walk the streets, like you said, and you'll be surprised what you would find around some of the houses.
Yeah, especially, rental places, is there room to park on the street? How busy is the street? And, things like that. I think it's definitely get a feel for that type of stuff. So, um, two of the last ones that I kind of wrote down, I think are really important. I think people should pay attention to, and definitely tap into, are subscribing to things like the Indy Star and the Indianapolis Business Journal. Just their online resources of getting their articles, being able to look at it on your phone, but you really get a sense for kind of what's going on in different spots. You get to hear, especially with the IBJ, you get to, hear about what are the next projects, what's going on with this. And, oh, this project fell out. This project, they just started, they greenlit this one. Those types of things of really kind of what's going on within the economy within Indianapolis, and knowing where those next projects are. So, and then the Indy Star is, it's a good resource too, just to figure out, oh man, there was this shooting. Oh wait, that was like right beside my rental, or those types of things pop out. But then also the good things that are going on in the different neighborhoods of what incentives are out there for, where's the public garden in this neighborhood? They're doing some amazing things with, and those types of things of, oh, this big church brand they're planning a church right here. This neighborhood might be a good area to turn around. Those types of things that you're going to hear about and be able to tap into, I think are vital.
Yeah, both great resources. And then, no, I don't even know if you still have more to go on your list, but also kind of Indianapolis related, like Visit Indy is a good one to go to, because you can kind of see like what's the plan on going around, what the events going around for the city for the whole year. So,
yeah. So as far as resources just on investing stuff and things like that, that's kind of my list. That's the list that probably I feel like most of the investors that I reached out to kind of like had most of those on their list that they kind of reached out to. If you know of anything else that you think would be a good thing for the listeners of the show to check out or know, definitely hit us up. Randy, do you have anything that I didn't add on our list that you want to add on to or put on there as well?
no, just like I said, I mean, there's a lot of other websites that people can go to and get data on Indianapolis. So it starts to get kind of repetitive, but I think the ones that we listed were great. Like I mentioned at the end there, Visit Indy's kind of just, hey, here's what's going on in Indianapolis, just so you can see that there's people doing things. The city has plans to keep everything as lively as possible. And then I guess the last thing I use sometimes is if you're into opportunity zones. I know it was a hot topic. We'll see if it continues to be, but there's also resources for that if you look that up as well.
Yeah. Two of the other things, if you're looking to visit Indy, and especially if you're coming with family or your kiddos and things like that, or you're just looking for a place to eat, two resources that I like to check out. Definitely one of them is Edible Indy. Just gives you all the lowdown on all the restaurants, places to go, things to do, that type of stuff. And then the other one is Indy with Kids. If you're coming here, if you're traveling here with your family to check out the city, or just coming here to check on your properties or anything like that, Indy with Kids is a great place to kind of figure out what's the cool things to do with your kiddos for different seasons and type of things like that. So, But there is a lot of opportunity here within Indianapolis, a lot of opportunity for investors, especially the way that the real estate market is looking. It is amazing right now. I think it's going to be amazing for a while still, looking at, a year, 15 months, 18 months, stuff like that. I think it's definitely going to happen. I don't see any big changes coming up. We, in the next couple of episodes, are going to be digging into the neighborhoods, digging into what's going on here in those different areas. So hopefully that will help you out. If you need anything from us at all, don't hesitate to reach out. You can hit us up at brian@simplewholesaling.com or randy@simplewholesaling.com. Check out our resources on our website as well, whether it's simplewholesaling.com or simple-rei.com, to the websites that we put out there that have some of our resources on there, our YouTube page, stuff like that. Let us know how we can help out in any way. And with that, that's another episode of the Indy Investor Pod. Take care.